Greetings, everyone. David J. Coon with Qigong Awareness. Welcome to vlog number 42. I have been having various people ask me questions lately about our distance healing program, and a few people asking me when the next vlog was coming out. So I decided to put the two together. I want to tell you about a little bit of a secret program. It's secret on the level that it is because most people don't know about it. All right. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. I'm not here to convince the world that I, as a quote unquote healer, can perform healing practices from over 3,000 miles away or whatever the case may be. Now, granted, if you've ever been to one of my CEU programs or something where we're teaching medical Qigong and I'm teaching a workshop about medical Qigong, then yes, you're going to hear more about that. But I'm still not trying to convince the world about it. I'm just speaking and teaching to people who are open to experiment with these kinds of things and to see for themselves that there's a phenomena going on. So wherever mind goes, energy goes. And the more powerful the mind is, meaning in this case, the more focused the mind is, the more intent the mind is. There are many studies on this. You can see this. I mentioned this in my book, Qigong for Beginners. I talk about Larry Dossey, who's a medical doctor who wrote a book many years ago. He's probably written others since then, but he wrote a book called The Power of Prayer, where people were praying and intending over plants and bacteria and so on. And guess what? They were doing it from a distance. And guess what? There were results. And not only were there results, the results followed a path in such a way that whatever the person was focused on, if the person was focused on ill intention toward the bacteria, guess what happened? Bad things happened to the bacteria. If they were focused on good things happening to the plant, guess what happened? And it didn't matter whether they did this in the name of like a saint or they just literally said, "This is how I feel. This is what I'm going to focus on." Now, there are a lot of experiments these days related to quantum physics. And in fact, there's a little secret battle. Speaking of secrets, I guess I'm just like busting out secrets today. But speaking of secrets, there's a little bit of a secret battle going on. Most people don't know about it. In other words, between quantum physics, the quantum physics community and the religious community, because quantum physics is actually saying that the world is literally here because you're here and because you're observing it, it's here. And however you observe it, um, you're influencing it. And you're influencing it based on your intention of how to influence it. So, in other words, if you're focused on uh, everything's going to go bad, everything's going to go to hell in a handbasket, well, then you're influencing that situation. If you have a patient who has some form of dis-ease, some form of pain, and you're able to focus on that patient or that client or that friend or that family member in such a way as to, it's more than this, okay, but I'll say simply see them well, intend them well. Like I have other ways in which I would teach you that. That's the basic idea of seeing them well, intending them well, praying for them to be well, that kind of idea, that you're automatically influencing in that direction. If you have also not heard of Dr. Emoto's work, Dr. Emoto, there's a book based on his work called, I believe it's Hidden Messages in Water. And that's a profound little book there because it points out to all of his research with water and water molecules and literally studies where they would write the word love, for example, on a water bottle, and then the molecular structure of the water would literally change just by writing the word love on that water bottle. Same if they wrote the word hate on that water bottle. And if you look at the crystalline structure, I'm sorry, if you look at the molecular structure, it looks like a crystalline structure, looks like crystal. and the crystals look broken, murky, dark, etc. when um, things like hateful speech or negative speech or whatever is being used over that water. And when some form of prayer or powerful intention of, mindfulness or love or kindness or these kinds of things are being used over the water has this beautiful, looks like a snowflake, just very similar to like a snowflake, down at its very core molecular structure. And these are other studies that are indicating these kinds of things. This is cool on the level that it is, and it's wonderful to have this research. Uh, and I'm interested in that kind of thing. I've studied molecular cellular biology for about 3.5 years at the University of Colorado after a 4-year psychology degree and working in a psych hospital and so on. So I'm interested in the science. I was training actually toward medical school. That was the goal at the time. I was also an emergency medical technician. So I do not knock science, and whether it's Eastern science or Western science. But since I was a kid and learning how to heal myself and being told that I had this severe spinal disease, I was open to the Eastern teachings. I was open to the Western teachings, and it's made me who I am. Not only was I able to heal my own spine, but I had an experience at 25 years old, roughly, where I had energy course through my body that's hard to even describe. And it left me with a very uh, significantly open heart in comparison to where I was. Melted away the turtle shell that lived around my heart and my chest. It also took my sort of psychic abilities, which I had when I was younger. When I was a kid, I had, various things that would come to me and so on. I won't get into all of that, but a lot of psychic perception. But it really refined it after I had that healing experience. So when I would sit and counsel people at the hospital and so on, which is kind of like right after I started having those experiences, right around 28 or 30 years old, I started working in a psych hospital. I was counseling people, and I would just say things like I would pull thoughts off of their own uh, seemingly mind, and it was true. I was pulling it off their mind, but it's important to understand it's actually happening in the energy system too. So, anyways, it's just a little bit of background. Point is, there's a lot of research on this, but at the same time, I'm still not here to prove to the world that this is a reality. I'm literally just, I'm not trying to push this on the world. There are people in the world who don't want to know. There are people in the world who don't believe it, etc. It's fine. It's all good. I am not here to prove anything to anybody in that way. If someone is open to these kinds of things, then I have various teachings where I can help people to go further. And you all become the healers. Perhaps you heal yourself first, but you also become the healers of not just the whole planet, because you're not going to heal the whole planet. You're not going to heal everybody. But there are people in your world that will follow you, just like there's people in my world that are following me. I'm trudging my way through the snow, and there are other people who are like, oh, there's a path there. Let me see. That's interesting. I'm going to follow that too, at least for a while, or whatever the case may be. Okay. So, when it comes to distance healing program, first of all, when I was about 21 years old or so, I started realizing that I had the ability to have some kind of influence on other people from a distance. Okay. Through prayer, through intentioning, through psychic capacity, etc. And as time went on, that began to increase. And trying to think when one of these first experiences happened. I believe it was in my late 20s where it started to go to another level. Yeah, so it would have been after I had that healing experience of my spine and the energy opening up and so on. I'll use this as an example. One of the first times I realized that the degree of power within these healing abilities had gone to another level. I had a dog at home that had parasitic worms. No joke, they were like this long. And so when she would defecate, she'd go poop. Literally, they were everywhere in her poop. So I literally called the vet and I said, this is what's going on. The vet said, you need to get her in here. We need to get her on medication, da 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 da. Da." And I said, okay. I said, I can't, like, I couldn't get there. At the time, I was a supervisor at the hospital, and there was no such thing as, like, for the most part, it was like calling in sick was a big no-no. Unless you had somebody to cover the unit, you literally had to be there. Otherwise, they would say that charges could be brought up against you for abandoning the unit. Like, no joke. That's like literally the way the hospital system works. So, anyway, so I literally felt bad, but I was like, all right, I got to leave my dog. I'll have to take her to the vet tomorrow. I'm going to leave the back door open. And I went to work that day. And at work, I literally sat there and started thinking to myself, of course, I was feeling bad about the dog being at home. So I literally thought to myself, you know what? I'm going to focus on her from a distance. And I literally I kind of asked my own intuition, like, I remember the thought came to me something like, what color would I use? Not that I always use color, but literally that was the idea. The thought that came to me is like, if I were to use a color, what color would I use? And so I literally visualized this kind of like hot molten red color. And I literally imagined boiling these parasites. Now, some people would have issues with that, okay? But anyway, as a martial artist and someone that wants to take care of my dog, I wanted these parasites out of there. And so I was not blessing them in that traditional way. I was literally saying, all right, you need to go. And so I literally created an energy to make them go away, for lack of better words. Well, anyway, I was pretty astounded actually later that night when I got home and saw that my dog had not gone to the bathroom out in the backyard or on the deck or anything. And I took her for a walk, and when she pooped, there was literally not one worm. And I was like, there's no way that I like had anything to do with this. So I contacted the vet the next morning and I said, is there any way that my dog, basically pooped these out? And the vet says, no way. Bring in a stool sample and we'll check it out. So he does a stool sample. He tells me I must be mistaken that there is no trace of microscopic organisms in my dog's stool. Well, I'm astounded. I'm like blown away, right? So this was the beginning for me. Shortly thereafter, I had another at the time, interestingly enough, it was kind of like a debate at one point in my life whether I was actually going to be a vet or I was going to go to medical school because I ended up doing a lot of healing work with animals, especially in the early years. And they just seemed to be very drawn to me. And a lot of these experiments unfolded. I didn't plan on them being experiments, but they ended up being quote unquote experiments. So another friend brought his dog. Next door neighbor actually had a dog. We both had Rottweilers actually at the time, and his dog went in, had some type of illness. This is shortly after what happened with my dog. Had some type of illness, had surgery, can't remember, something to do with the stomach. I think the stomach got turned over, as I recall. And so they had to do surgery. And the dog's temperature after surgery was dangerously low. And they were really afraid that this dog was going to pass. And so my friend called me. He said, can you come down here? I said, I can't come down right now. I said, but I'm going to do something. I want you to call me back as soon as something changes. So I literally sat there and I began focusing on the dog's temperature rising. And he literally called me back. This is a very short time later, 15 minutes later. He said that the dog's temperature, and I have to laugh at this, but he said that I've gotten better at it, okay, since then. But he said that the dog's temperature had skyrocketed and was literally going in the direction of fever. So I immediately backed off what I was doing and kind of like tried to go to the middle zone. And later I realized the middle zone is always the best zone. That's my simple explanation of that for right now. And they were shocked, but the dog's temperature came back to normal. The dog recovered, et cetera, et cetera. There was another time, I'll use another animal example, and one of you out there knows exactly who I'm talking to when I tell this story because I know you listen to the vlog, so you remember this story. This is no joke. This is a real story. So one of my clients who had two surgeons were going to remove her gallbladder. I actually energetically worked on her and never touched her body. Okay, energetically worked on her. She uh, went back to both of those surgeons, the numbers related to her blood work and her gallbladder numbers, etc., whatever numbers they were measuring at the time, which were off the charts. They wanted to remove the gallbladder. I've known her now for 20 years. She's actually a level 5 certified Qigong and medical Qigong instructor and practitioner in our program. And she has never had to have gallbladder surgery. So that's literally about 20 years ago. Well, she contacted me, and her and her daughter had a rabbit. And the daughter called hysterical, and she was on the way to the vet's office. And the rabbit, for whatever reason, its eyeball, like it didn't poke its eyeball or anything. So right away I knew it was a pressure issue, but the eye was literally pushing out of the rabbit's head. It's kind of rough, but anyway, it has a good ending. Anyway, she's on the way to the vet's office, and the eyeball is out of the head, and she contacts my student, and I happened to be with her. And so I immediately said, my student, she started kind of freaking out as well. And I said, relax, it's okay. Tell her that I'm going to do something right now. And so I immediately started doing this. And literally, she had like maybe somewhere between a 15 and 30-minute drive. I don't remember where exactly that was in relationship to the vet's office, but she was driving, and I believe it was about 30 minutes, but anyway, somewhere in there. Over that period of time, I worked on the rabbit. By the time the rabbit got to the vet's office, the eye had gone back into the head, the pressure had dissipated, and they could not find anything wrong with the rabbit. And literally from that point forward, uh, I think there was a little bit of a follow-up with it where there was some swelling in the eye and so on, but it never sort of came back out of the head. I continued to work on that rabbit until things settled down. So, this is the story of my life. Not everybody's going to want to hear it because, again, there are so many people in the world who think this is all a bunch of, woo woo, and I can't blame them. I only believe this stuff because I see it with my own two eyes, and I've been doing it for the last 30 years. And I believe that, as Jesus said, these miracles ye shall do, and many more. I believe that all of us have the potential to do this. I believe that most people are living something very different. They're living in a place of disconnection. They're living in a place of disbelief, so on and so forth. So, um, there's a lot to say about that. I can't say it all in one video. But I will say that for those of you that are interested in this kind of thing, not only do I do this privately for people, and I have many more stories than that to tell you, um, we have a weekly distance healing program. Technically, it's a monthly distance healing program. And over the course of a month, I charge $99 for this. It's $99 for the month, which I think is very, very reasonable for all that I give in this distance healing program. Once a week on Wednesday evenings, I ask people to lie down. I ask people to light a candle if they desire, create some sacred space. Every Wednesday for the last 3.5 years, maybe a little longer, I think we're going on 4 years, uh, from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. I actually have a list of people's names that are on the program, and I literally go through each individual person from 6 to sometimes longer. Sometimes I might go till 7:30 or something, but I literally go through each and every person on that list, and then I work on the group as a collective. So that's every Wednesday. So it's at least four healings in a month for the $99. But then on top of that, I literally have uh, different methods that I use to have the people who are in the distance healing program on my altar. I'm sort of, if this makes sense to you, I'm feeding the altar incense. I'm playing music on the altar. I have a certain crystal that I work with that I use to house some of the energy that I work with. So I send a lot of energy and have been to this particular crystal over a period of time now, over 4 years. And this is a rose crystal quartz. It's also sat with some pretty powerful gurus. And this sits with the names of those folks. And I have some other things that I do with sacred geometry and so on to keep the energy feeding the people who are in the group. People who are sensitive to energy are really blown away by even their first time in coming to this particular program. But most people, it takes time to actually resonate to the energy that's being offered there, which is why I often say to people, if you're going to do it, at least try 3 months and watch what it does for you in your life, because this gives you a great opportunity to catch up to speed with healing. Because on a last note for right now, in this particular vlog number 42, perhaps we'll pick it up in 43, we'll see. But it takes time, it takes momentum, and it takes a higher vibration. And in order to access and reach a higher vibration, there's a tremendous amount of sort of effort and energy and work that has to go into that because there are so many things that are influencing us in the opposite direction of higher vibration, in the opposite direction of expansion. And so the idea behind this healing program and these healing clinics that I do and these healing sessions that I do is that we are gaining momentum over time. Now, there are specific situations where it might happen, like it did with the rabbit or it did with the Rottweilers, the examples that I use. There are things that can literally happen in one session, and it does happen. Most people, though, have one, two, three, four problems. They don't just have one problem. They typically come to distance healing program with. So anyway, if you're interested in distance healing program, check it out. I'll leave the link below. And thanks for hanging in there and listening to this. I hope that it had some meaning to you in your life. And perhaps we'll see you in the next vlog. Thank you.